Nowhere. The GL function does not exist in the book. So, we are going off topic here. And I'll save this so I can email this out too. I know.
What? They made it to the center.
Okay. So the GL function, let's kind of go through this. Our GL account number. And I need to get the balance as of now.
Is this your mapping?
This is, yeah, I'm just kind of building out the tables, or the report, and just kind of, so that way we can describe what it is. I want the balance at a date. I also want to get the net change between two dates. And I want to get the net change between date and now. And we can go ahead and get the budget as well, credits, and debits. So as we deal with the GL account, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a replicator that's just going to list out all my GL accounts right now. In fact, we will come in here and say rows. I'm not using my GL function yet, because what I need to do is just simply go out to my GL account table and give me a list of all of the numbers. Don't care, anything else. There we go, all my GL account numbers. Okay. Now I'm going to break into my GL account function. Let's see, all of my information is in 2007, 2008. So I'm going to create two filters up here. One that's a start date, and one that's an end date. When we work with our GL function, we actually have to have these as two separate dates. We can't deal with it in a range. So my start date, I'm going to go ahead and say 01, 01, 08, 01, 31, 08. So I've got my two dates, my start date, my end date. So on this replicated region, I want to be able to get the balance as of now, balance at a specific date, the net change between two dates, the net change between a date and right now, and the budgets, credits, and debits for this specific account. So I'm going to break out my GL function here. What do I want to do? Well, I can choose balance, budget, credits, or debits. I only have 4 options. There's no replicators, there's no firsts, there's no sums. If I want the balance as of right now, I'll choose balance, because that's what I'm interested in. Which account? Well, I can specifically choose one, or just like I have done for the past 2 days, I can reference that cell. And you know what? I'm going to just go ahead, I'm not going to lock it down, because I'm going to do this for each one of these ones. I have a start date and an end date. There's 4 combinations of things I can do with just these 2 fields. I can have them both blank. I can have them both filled in. I can have the start date filled in, but then end date blank. Or I can have the start date blank and the end date filled in. 4 combinations. That's why I have balance as of now, balance as of date, net change, and net change. 4 options. If I want the balance as of right now, I put no dates whatsoever. 0 balance. So if I run this report, I can now see the balance of these various accounts as of right now. But let's say I want to get the balance at a specific date and time. Okay, oops. Good.
Did you do a data dump for the 1,000 account? Or?
I just did a summary list. I probably should have done a data dump with an NF statement, but I was being quick and lazy. So let's go to my GL here. Again, I'm dealing with a balance, so I'm going to go ahead and choose balance. My account, well, I'm going to go ahead and choose my account. Now if I want to know the balance at a very specific date and time, I leave the start date open and enter in an end date only. So what was the balance on the 31st of January 2008? That one I'm going to go ahead and lock down because I'm making a reference to one of my filters in the top left corner. We'll come and we'll talk about the rest of these after we get through this top level stuff. I rerun my report, and I think my information actually stops on the 8th, so let's change this to C2. So what was the balance on the 1st of the month? There we go. Now we've got some changes. So if I want to know the balance on a specific date, all I have to do is tell it the end date. Essentially sum up all the transactions up to that date, right? From the beginning of time till that day. That's the balance of that account. As we add to it and subtract for it, it changes. Now the net change between the 2 dates, we kind of talked about this yesterday when I first kind of showed off the GL. Right? We didn't want a budget, we didn't want just credits, and we didn't want just debit, so that only left us with balance. So I'm going to go ahead and choose balance. Still reference my account. But if I want to know the net change between 2 dates, I simply say, okay, well, what's my start date? I'll lock that reference down. What's my end date? Lock this reference down. So essentially what it's going to do is, what was the balance on January 31st? What was the balance on January 1st? Find the difference between those, the sum of all those transactions. And we can actually see, because this is the balance right now as of January 31st, on the 1st of the year it was 0, so we have a net change of 147.73. Same thing here, if we found out the difference of those, we can grab that value. So the net change between a specific date and right now, we're going to get that same number here. But I'm going to go ahead and choose balance yet again. Tell it where my account is. And in this instance, I'm going to say, I'm going to supply a start date with no end date. Okay? If I supply no end date, it says what's the balance right now. But the net change is between 2 dates, so if I supply a start date with no end date, it says, okay, well the end date must be right now, and the start date is whatever it is. I'm going to add a third one down here, so we're going to call that December 1st on C4. So we'll call this December 1st, 07. So now we don't have an error message anymore.
How did you do today? Like as of now?
As of today, I left it blank.
Oh.
So by leaving it blank, it's just what's the net change between this day and the balance of what it is right now. So by adding that, we can see some different values here. This would make sense. It looks like we didn't have any transactions for that account in December, but we certainly had some here. Budget, credits, debits. Let's skip over budgets for a second. Let's jump over to credits. I go to my GL. What do I want to do? I want to retrieve the total of the credits. For which account? That account. And all of the same rules apply. Oops. I would typically apply a start date and an end date because I want to know the sum of those credits. So let's start from January 1st. I can certainly do an end date of the 31st, or I can leave it blank. What's it right now? Let's add this here. And I can see, because that's a negative, we've got that there. So this is the sum of all the credits. Typically we would do this with a range, so I'll go ahead and do the range, end date and a start date. More than likely we do this on a month by month basis with the sum of the credits and some of the debits for each month. Debits are exactly the same. I can actually just, well, I'm not going to copy that over because I didn't lock anything down. Go to our GL. This time let's choose debits. Account, come back to our replicator. Start date, C2, end date, C3. And this debit number should match, well, the sum of these two should match the net change. Let's see if we can find one. Here we go. So if I were to find the difference of these, right, this is a negative number, that's a positive number, I should get that value. Because the net change is exactly the same as taking the sum of the credits and the sum of the debits. I can get all this exact same information by going to the GL entry and doing sum, GL entry, and doing the same thing, date range, or an open-ended date range, or a closed date range. But the GL function works faster. Some of the nice things about the GL function are the fact that we can come in. By default, I've got global dimension 1 or global dimension 2. But if I understand correctly, you guys have 3 dimensions, right? 2 global and 1 advanced.
Yeah, but the ones they're going to be using are global.
Okay.
First one, for our purposes, is plant area region. It's a roll-up.
Okay.
And the second one is going to be department, which is going to include the line of business, the product lines, and then
Okay.
cost centers.
Perfect. So if I needed to apply a specific global dimension, I can grab one of those dimensions. Same thing with my global dimension 2. Here's where I can choose.
Is
Okay.
there any ability to get at the third dimension?
The only way to do that is to have an analysis view. So right now, right, I see global dimension 1, global dimension 2. If I set up an analysis view, oh, I need to view my data by campaign. I can change my view to campaign, and now I have access to my sales campaign code, my area code, my business code group, and my salesperson code. Those are all advanced dimensions.
So the good news, I think, Shelley, is that the only dimension that's not going to show up there is legal entity, which for the operating companies is equal. It's a one-to-one. The only time it's not a one-to-one is on our holding companies. So that would be more of a consolidated thing versus an operations thing. So the good news is we'll have the 2 dimensions we need for pretty much all our reporting other than holding company and consolidated reporting.
Where would that be?
Like you said, we're going to have to create another group so that we can bring in that third dimension.
Yeah.
But
And when
it's-
you do that, when you select that view, then you'll see the 3 dimensions pop up here. And at that point, you can just select the ones you want. Now you can make these references to options up here. I know my sales campaign code, well, I've got summer or winter. I can make it, choose the sales campaign, summer or winter, or both. Area code, if I want to narrow it down to one specific area code. All these filters just work like all our other filters. If I want somebody to change something, I create a report option. They can change that value. I can hard code it and say, well, it's always going to be this, or it's always going to be that. Those are all things we can explore.
This may be jumping ahead, but like, how does somebody use JET for like true financial statement reporting?
Gotcha.
Or you want to use the columns and rows, not just let the system query.
Right. So right now, this is pretty basic, right? It's just, here's my GL accounts, it's every single one of them, that's not what I want. Here's various things. Okay. There's a couple different ways that I see people do it. Now, typically with, say, a balance sheet or income statement, it's multiple accounts. Right? There is going to be some prep work for that. In fact, let's see if I have, since we don't need this anymore, let's close this up. I'll pull this up, it's on our servers at work, so I can VPN tonight and I'll pull it up. One of my coworkers actually made an income statement that will show you kind of how we would build that. You would have to still do some manual work. I still would have to say, okay, for cash, right? It's account 1,000 and this would be actually, let's say, assets, right? It's account 1,000 or 1200 or 5,000, right? Those are my accounts that all make up my assets. And so from that point now, I can say, okay, well here I can build my balance and budget and credits and debits and all that, and reference this. But I have to create all of this to start off with. It's not automatic. Now you could do something where you actually create totaling accounts, right? This asset is totaling account 50,000, right? Which will take all these accounts and total them up. Now my assets, I can just say, look at this one account, give me